welcome to Monday Morning Detective. My name is Gino Scala, and this is episode 16 of the podcast. Now, this is a slightly different episode, as I'm going to cover two true crime cases, but not in any great detail, because both of them involve a situation that happened to me this weekend. So, this weekend I'm watching the news, and I see that the suspect, or a suspect, a person of interest, in the Delphi, Indiana murders of two young girls, 11 and 14, that took place, I think, 2017. Was identified. He was identified through a fake Twitter or Facebook account where he reached out and contacted one of the girls, the 11-year-old named Libby. Now, you may recall this murder case, very, very tragic, very sad. These two friends, 11 and 14, had been dropped off at the local park not far from their home, where they had asked to spend the day exploring and being girls. There's a rickety old bridge, railroad type trestle that you cross while in the park, and people do that, and they take pictures, and maybe in the summer they jump and go swimming and things of that nature. But this was in the fall or winter months of Indiana several years ago. Their bodies were found at the bottom of a hill. And what made this case interesting or different was that one of the girls had the foresight to surreptitiously videotape an adult male walking towards them from across that wooden bridge. They were the only ones out there. And here's this man, a large man, heavy set, very tall, probably in his 30s or 40s. And she gets this on video. Now, it's kind of a sideways video because she wasn't holding the camera up and filming the guy. She was doing it so he didn't see it. But what we also see on this video, or hear, is the camera pointing to the ground, but you hear the man's voice order the kids down the hill. So we have a voice print of the suspect. And there's no doubt this person is the suspect. He's the only person there. He orders them in a very angry and controlling manner. And I'm not going to get into what happened to the girls, but they were found dead after a massive search. Now, this case has always haunted me because of the sadness of it. And having, several children, including a couple of girls, and now grandchildren, which are two girls, it's just tragic that these girls are victims like this. So it's imperative we catch this person. We, meaning the collective people of the United States. Well, I hadn't heard anything, but on this occasion, the news said that they found someone that they identify as the suspect. Who had a fake account on social media and was reaching out to one of the girls. And they had agreed to meet at this park. So it's pretty strong at this point. But that's all I heard. So it got me thinking, oh, good. One of the cases that's always bothered me as a true crime aficionado seems to be solved, which is just great. We had the Golden State Killer solved through DNA, and many other long-term cases, some of which I've heard and followed, others which I did not. And this one was one that I followed. So it got me thinking, now what? Now what are some of the other cases that come to mind that have not been solved, that I'm aware of? And the one that always comes to mind first, because of its uniqueness, is this murder that took place in Florida. The suspect, dressed as a clown, approached this residence, rang the doorbell. Door was answered by the woman of the house. She exclaimed, "Oh, what beautiful flowers." The clown was bearing flowers and balloons. And as the woman reached out to take the flowers, the clown produced a gun and shot her twice in the face, killing her instantly. The witness, who is her son, came running out and watched the killer clown get into a sedan, turns out to be, I think, a Cordoba, and calmly takes off. The killer walked to the vehicle and drove off calmly, not spinning their tires and in no hurry to take off. Now, I remember this case. Now, this took place in 1990. So, in 1990, I'm aware of this case, and I thought about it on and off for many, many, many years, 30 years. Later on that evening, as I'm sitting there thinking of this case, I wonder what happened to that case. Haven't heard. But I remember the case vividly because the victim lived in what they call an airport neighborhood, where all the residents own private planes and they have their own airstrip. And it's, we're talking maybe 10 or 12 residents. So it's very well-to-do. She was well-to-do. Her family was well-to-do. She was married. And her son. I remember the son being a teenager, having a cast on his ankle. He had just broken his ankle. I want to say it was skateboarding, but I'm not sure. So he's at home when all this occurred. And I remember the investigation led to a costume place in the city where the owner of the business, who's really the only employee at that time, remembered this woman coming in. She had long dark hair, renting this clown costume. And they had a receipt. Obviously, the name was not real. I think she paid cash. So they believe that they believe the suspect is a female. They don't know for sure, but by the height and weight description that the boy gave, the fact that, her walking, it all gave an impression of a woman. And she was in full clown makeup with a wig, so no hair or anything was seen. She had gloves. No fingerprints were available. So all they had was this clown, this car, and the shop. That's all they had. And I think they investigated the hell out of it and came to a dead end. Well, I hadn't heard anything. However, on this weekend, this past weekend, I'm watching the news. This is another news report, different from the Delphi case, where they mention that the killer clown trial is set to begin. Just as I'm thinking about this case. Now, if that doesn't shock the hell out of you, if that ever happens to you, it shocked the hell out of me. So, of course, I listened, and it turns out the crime happened in 1990. In 2017, they arrested a woman as the suspect in this case. Now, I was not aware. If I was aware of this, I guess it's possible I forgot, because my memory is really terrible. But this was all new information. She may have been a suspect, but they didn't have enough. I know I watched all the true crime shows, and this case was covered probably on 5 different shows, 5 different networks. Discovery ID, the Oprah channel, whatever they are now. There's quite a few of them, and I know this case has been covered. So I may have been aware that she was a suspect, but I was not aware of her being arrested or being brought to trial. Had heard nothing. And here I am sitting, thinking of this case, and boom, on the news, they're telling us that today, Monday, the trial will start. I was floored. Let me tell you, I was floored. And I don't think much of coincidences. I think there are signs, and we either accept the signs or we ignore them. And I'm friends with several people who are in the habit of accepting these signs because they have extraordinary powers, sensory powers. I'm talking about Jeanette, who is a telepath. I'm talking about Sally Bernard, who has written this book, one of which I'm writing a screenplay about, and her sensory powers. I'm talking about Mindy, who I met through Sally, and Rose Lambert, who I met through Sally. They also have these experiences. And through these people I've talked to and met dozens, it could be hundreds by now, because I've met a lot of them. And I'm telling you, these people are absolutely normal in every aspect. And they've taught me that things like these signs are not accidental, they're not coincidental. What does it mean in the end? I don't know. But here's a case that for 30 years has been on my mind, on and off. the day I'm really thinking about it, because I wanted to figure out what case I knew that I have not, that I know is unsolved, and boom, it's on the news. Right then. Not an hour before, not, you know, not 5 hours later, not a week ago, just then. Haven't heard anything. Haven't read anything, haven't seen anything. I'm being completely honest here. I thought about this case and boom, it's on. Turns out the suspect, I'm sure some of you are wondering, is currently the wife of the man that was married to the victim. So whether or not the husband is involved, I don't know. He's not under arrest, as far as I know. Only the woman. So she took it upon herself to kill his wife in order to marry him, to free him up to marry. And, that's really the... Now, that is something maybe the police knew for 27 years, probably had strong suspicions. They probably spoke to her at length, or maybe she lawyered up right away, which, despite what they say, is perfectly legal to do. It will immediately draw red flags. But they do have her in custody, and I'm happy. I'm happy on both cases. But I just find it really strange that, I hear the news about one case, I think of another case. Right as I'm thinking about that case, boom, this news event comes across that this trial is starting. So anyway, it's not exactly a, one of our podcast topics or anything, as we're not diving into either case. Perhaps we will as the trial progresses. We might visit both cases. But for now, I just thought it was really interesting to mention the timing of all this weekend and how it really blew my mind. Okay? So if you have any comments or questions, I hope you do. Please, go ahead and make the comments in the comment section. Whether or not you can say I'm crazy. You can say I'm full of it. You can, everybody has their opinion. But I'm just telling you what happened in my case. All right? So I want you all to have a wonderful and safe Halloween, and we'll talk again real soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.